Hey, everybody. I'm Jason Hall, my wife, Jennifer Hall. We are hosting the Rich Marriage Podcast. We're so excited to be here with you today. We got a really cool topic, man. Jennifer, man, she the one that came up with this, man. This is a powerful topic. I can't wait. I'm really excited. So I'm going to let you share what it is.
We came up with this together. Come on, we do this together now. But no, this is has been a huge theme of our marriage. Again, it was a point we had to really look up, and we found ourselves in just reflecting and examining where we were in our marriage. We found ourselves in a space where we realized that we had really allowed ministry, and we had really allowed church to consume our lives and our marriage. One thing that I have consistently heard from mega preachers to smaller churches to mid-sized churches, it doesn't really matter the size of the ministry or the church. But one thing that I've heard over and over and over again in the last 20, 25 years is when pastors and ministers are, when they are interviewed or when they're asked a question. Oftentimes this has been at different conferences and different things like that I've seen. There's one question in particular that always comes up, and it's usually something in regards to, if you could go back, what is one thing that you would do differently? And that answer has been so similar across the board. Again, it doesn't matter what size ministry or how long they've been in ministry. The answer has typically been, I wish I had spent more time at home. I wish I would have spent more time with my children. I wish that I would have been more present in my home. And over the years, hearing that over and over and over again, every time I heard it, it did a little something and turned a little something inside of me. And in dreaming about and in thinking about what our rich marriage looked like, I made up in my mind, and I shared with Jason that is something that I never want to look back and have to say. That's something that I never want to look back and hear our children say, or hear us say about our marriage, our relationship, about our home, is that we wish that we would have spent more time there. We wish that we would have been more present there. And so early on in our marriage, you remember, we started out, even before our marriage, we were in ministry together. So there really was never a time that we weren't in ministry together, right, even as friends. And then as we became involved romantically and then getting married, we were always in ministry together. It was a huge part of our lives. So you could say we were always at something or doing something or a part of something. And so we had our first daughter together. Actually, she was born the day before our first wedding anniversary. So we spent our first wedding anniversary in the hospital, celebrating her birth and celebrating 1 year of marriage. And so we were deep off in it. Even having an infant so early on, it didn't really stop our rhythm of ministry in church. And so early on in those first few years, we were there a lot of time and energy, a lot of everything was poured into being at church and doing church and church events.
So for us, it became church first and Christ second.
Yeah.
We had a church-centered marriage rather than a Christ-centered marriage. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize it until she, really broke it down. And we spent so much time externally trying to please God, doing things, trying to please people, right, in ministry,
Real tough, yeah.
Showing up as anointed, trying to be that for other people, that we were missing the mark at home. We weren't as intimate as we needed to be. We weren't as involved as we needed to be. And that was where this idea of, is your marriage church-centered or is your marriage Christ-centered? Is it church-centered or Christ-centered? And she brought this up, and I was like, that's huge. Are we the church or are we serving the church? You know, is it an external thing or is it an internal thing? And we found out over the years that we are the church. You know, our lives are the church, the expression. And a lot of times, unfortunately, when you see churches fall, great men of God fall, it's because of the lack in the home. They're anointed on stage, but unfortunately at home, they're not. And so there's this neglect, right? And we were headed down that path. There was even times where our parents told us, like, man, you guys are always at that church. You know what I said? When they said, you're always at the church, in my mind, and I told Jennifer, I said, y'all just ain't saved like we are. Y'all not saved as we are because we always in church, because we always put the church first. We always put God first. That was our perspective.
That's where we were. Yeah, I'm laughing because, you know, we really were in a place early on, and we can look back now and we can really say, like, we were off on some stuff. We were, but thank God for him revealing that to us, and thank him for the transition into where we are today. But yes, we didn't even realize it. We were so deep off in it that we didn't even realize it. How much we were, you know, there, and how much we were just focused on the church and not our family and not our marriage. And so, yeah, it was a really, like you said, as Jason said, this revelation was huge. It was huge for us, and it was a shift. I really couldn't put it into words. It was a while since we'd been in it. But when he gave me the words for it, I was just like, wow. And it was because we've seen and we've walked alongside so many young marriages, so many young families who are experiencing or who have experienced the same thing. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss it and really show how, like, hey, like, we had to make some changes. We had to really sit down and examine and look at the root as to why. One of the things Jason said was we were doing a lot of things for God. We were very works-based, right? And he took us on this journey of transitioning into, like, being versus doing. We weren't being who we were created to be out of the flow of our unique design. We were more just doing things for God instead of doing things with God. And that was a huge, huge shift for us. And I can even say that I'll speak for myself, and I'll let you chime in anyway. I'd lost myself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like
my goodness.
I wasn't being who I was.
Yeah,
I was being, as Jason said, a lot of it was on a people-pleasing basis. A lot of it was, you know, again, we got to do this, you know, to be good, strong Christians, right? We weren't being ourselves. And so, again, we were more of doing instead of being, and it was affecting our marriage. It was affecting our family because we weren't showing up. We weren't pouring as much, and the at-home life wasn't as rich as our church life was. And so we really had to make a shift and really start to focus in on home. We want to share a few things, like some of the things that we did. I mean, date night is huge for us. It's become non-negotiable. I know you probably heard that term and you hear it all the time thrown around, but date night is non-negotiable for us. Even in the hardest seasons of our marriage, date night stayed non-negotiable. There's this picture of Valentine's Day of, I think it was either 2017 or 2018, probably the hardest season of our marriage ever. But it's one of my favorite Valentine's Day pictures of us as we were out on a date night, spending time together. We never stopped dating. Once we made that shift, this became priority over the church activities, over needing to be there for every single service, every single event. And not only that, for our children, having time. What did it look like for us to cultivate a home of Christ-centeredness? Because it's far beyond just being at church. It flows out of the home into everything else. And so what did it look like for us to bring that into our home, into our marriage, and into our family? We had to make some changes.
Yeah, that's huge. I know that I definitely lost myself. I definitely lost my identity, focusing more on the activity and the functionality of church, as opposed to letting my life be the expression of church, the expression of who Christ is, the identity of myself and him, but also my relationship to my wife and what that home looks like, the example, right? And so I say one thing, that we're not experts, but we're examples. You know, we're not experts, but we're examples of Christ in our home to our children. You are the biggest influencer in your home over your children. You're the biggest influencer. And that's the thing, like, our kids care more about our relationship with each other than they do about what we do on the outside of the home. Our kids could care less about what we do for a living. Our kids could care less about how much money we make. Well, I'm going to take that back. They do care about the money. Sorry. They do care about the money. But I'm just saying, they don't care about the status. They don't care about, they just want to be loved, you know. And that's one thing that we realize in a Christ-centered home, to show that expression of love of who Christ is. And, you know, yes, pray, open up the Bible, but honestly, it's just by our actions. It's by our love. You're known by your love. And that's the thing that really impacts our children even today, is our love for Christ, our relationship with Christ, the way we relate to our Heavenly Father is the biggest, hugest thing. And we had to realize when we made that transition to say we are going to be more Christ-centered. We will still attend church, we will still do ministry, and we'll still serve as we feel led and impact the lives of others in multifaceted ways. But now we look at things like, this is kingdom, right? This is what God called us to do. And it comes out of our being. I love how you said that. We realize it's out of the being. It's out of the intentional, purposeful life that Christ called us to live, and not the striving or external things that we try to do to please him, because we're already pleased when you were born. Matter of fact, before you were formed in your mother's womb, he was already pleased. So you don't have to do anything to please God. You just have to be. And so be in him, and all that love that saturates you. And so the only way we're able to have a rich marriage is to put Christ first. That, for us, that is the very success. That's the very thing that, you know, the expression of love, that's what we prioritize. We prioritize Christ. That's what we choose to do. We submit to him, and there's nothing we have to do to make it happen. We just have to submit to his will, and we have to, our steps are ordered by the Lord, so we submit to what he has for our lives. And what does that look like for you? Like, what do you think about, you know, putting Christ first in our marriage and our home?
I mean, one thing that I'm thinking about, and as you were saying, is, you know, we're modeling this before our children as well, right? How do they see Christ show up in our home through us? Is marriage is a picture of Christ, right? And so if this is a picture of Christ, and this is the picture that our children are seeing in our home, and even outwardly, right? What does that look like? And so we have little clues that I like to say, especially even with our youngest, she's 8, is like we are constantly in dialogue with each other. We're making decisions, we make everything, you know, together. We're communicating with each other on a deep level. We actually like each other, and they can see that. And it's funny that sometimes she'll like, can y'all just stop talking? She's like, well, we talk to each other too much. That's what you say. She's like, yeah, y'all just talk. I'm like, she's 8 years old, and even she sees that. And then we have our older two. Y'all are always going out on date night. And we tell them, it's when you don't see us going on date night, and when you don't see us talking this much, that you need to be concerned. And so them, you know, expressing those things to us show us and are great cues that we're doing something right. If they see it, and they see us, you know, they're complaining about how much we're doing it, we're doing it right. And so those things, and building a foundation, again, in dialogue with each other, the time that we spend in devotion with them, them seeing us serve outwardly, right, even outside of the 4 walls, it's been huge for us, because we're more outwardly focused now, whereas when we were more church-centered, it was a more inward focus, right? When you get outside of the 4 walls and you begin to be instead of do, then you give God the opportunity to enlarge your territory and expand your reach and what he can do through you. And so that's been the huge thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking. But Christ-centered versus church-centered, what does that look like within your marriage? How does that look like as you sit down and define what your rich marriage looks like? Is it more church-centered or is it more Christ-centered? And how does that align with your vision for you, your marriage, and your family?
That's huge. Thank you for sharing. We thank you for tuning in today to the Rich Marriage Podcast. We'd love for you to subscribe, get to know us better.
Turn on notifications.
What is that? Oh, the notifications. Yeah. So when we pop them new episodes. But this has been great. Great conversation, Christ-centered versus church-centered. What is it for you? Subscribe and we will release more information. We will have just endless things that God gives us. We want to continue on and do this. Share it with somebody you know. Share it with somebody you love. Share it with your spouse. But God bless. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.